welcome everyone. Let's get to know you. Introduce yourself, and you can introduce ETHLAS as well.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm Nick. I head up DeFi and all the finance bits over at ETHLAS. And personally, I came from a very traditional banking background. I also spent like 7 years at JP Morgan and Citibank. And after a while, I felt the banking world is just moving too slowly to really catch up with the adoption in the Web3 space. And that's when I came out to find something really exciting. And then I chanced upon this opportunity to be at ETHLAS. And what ETHLAS actually is a platform that we call ourselves GameFi. But what we are at our very core is a platform that aims to facilitate the next wave of adoption from Web 2 to Web 3. And at the time when we were fundraising and we were launching the platform, we were looking around and we were seeing what in Web 2 resembles most like the state and the usability in the Web 3 space. And naturally, like GameFi came to mind because people have been owning digital assets in the gaming space for years. It's just that maybe it lacked that interoperability, lacked the ability to cash out easily. And therefore, gaming would be just a natural progression for adoption of utility. So we started out with building games, and I think the kind of games we built are a bit different from what we typically see in the Web3 space, in that don't really focus on like blockbuster games. But because of our mission to onboard Web2 guys to Web, this also comes with a lot of like psychological barriers to entry, in the sense like people sometimes feel that Web3 is quite difficult to learn. And the way we want to bring them in is to introduce them to something very familiar and something very easy to pick up. So that's when we landed on casual gaming as the medium to bridge them over from Web 2. So we started building like really easy to play like games which you would let your grandmother or grandfather see, and they would be able to start playing. And once they get into our ecosystem, they play, they get the sense of what it means to start earning some in-game tokens which they can then cash out. And that's when they really start their journey into the Web3 space. And that is really what we are constantly trying to improve on, like the user journey, how we can get these top of funnel guys down into really like creating a MetaMask and going to DEXs and really like doing swaps and just getting more and more into the space. So yeah, that's in a nutshell kind of what we are right now and what we want to achieve going forward.
Okay, nice. So basically, ETHLAS is a platform to facilitate the next wave of adoption from Web 2 to Web 3. So in your case, you guys use the easiest form of gaming, casual gaming. And with that, it's a more familiar, I guess, gaming scene and it's on mobile.
We are currently mainly browser based, but our games are mobile optimized as well. We actually have launched a mobile app on Android, and we're seeing pretty decent traction on that actually. So we might consider launching one on Apple Store as well.
Nice. And yeah, so your point was casual gaming that is familiar, and then from there they start to earn crypto tokens, and then slowly enter Web3 by, let's say, integrating with their own MetaMask, maybe moving their tokens over, interacting with DEXs and swaps. Yeah, recently I remember there was a recent partnership with Layer Zero, right, where now within the browser itself, within the game, I can bridge my tokens from one chain to another. Yeah, maybe you can elaborate on that with regards to how that brings about adoption.
So one thing that we did was in the whole ecosystem, maybe before I touch on like bridging, was we thought there was actually a lot of value in bringing visualization of crypto capability into the metaverse. For example, if you want to get some yield, then you go to this place called the bank. If you want to maybe swap your tokens, you go to this guy called the money changer. And if you want to get some yield, you go to maybe the tree of life, and things like that help to associate people's, especially if you're a newcomer, it helps you to anchor a certain concept to a certain visual and a certain mechanism. And so within the meta, we do have like different features where, say, if you want to go sell your in-game goods, you go to the marketplace and you go speak to the merchant, and we open there's a pop-up with peer-to-peer marketplace. And similarly, if you want to do anything like DeFi related, you go to the treasury where there's a banker, there is a money changer, there's a gem expert, where gem is our in-game currency. And we felt that something that is actually very foreign to crypto users and new crypto users is this concept of bridging. So We had earlier on already incorporated fiat on-ramps, just making it easier for people to cash into crypto using fiat, and we integrated with MoonPay for that. And now we're looking at, so now people can get their money into the ecosystem, but say if they want to move money to different chains, so if they've heard about NFTs in Ethereum and they want to get money to Ethereum, how do they do that, and how do we make it visually easily understandable for them? So that's when we did an integration with Layer 0 to do bridging, and we represented it by a section in this space where we call the Coin Master, where you can enter and you can swap coins around, and you can also conduct bridging. So I think this also opens lots of possibilities in the sense where I think different chains are probably stronger at different aspects. For example, AVAX for a moment of time was very strong at GameFi. Like every game would want to go on AVAX for maybe the subnet technology. And ETH is obviously very strong at like PFP, NFT, and communities in general. So just going multi-chain with Layer 0 it was just a platform play and offers like a lot of potential for building in the future. So we were pretty excited about that.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess along with that, it's also the ability for you guys to bring on more adoption just within the crypto ecosystem from different chains to interact with ETHLAS.
Yeah, and so one thing about like interoperability, we actually thought quite hard about how do we actually try to bring not only Web2 communities into Web3, but how do we bring Web3 communities together? And we realized that, okay, it was actually GameFi summer when we launched, and there were actually a lot of communities out there that launched with a profile picture project and possibly with a game, but that game could take 6 months to develop. And during this time, communities within that project usually start out strong, but if that particular team takes a long time to develop, then there's a high chance that the community might splinter. So how can we keep these communities together? And one easy way was, let's develop utility for other projects NFTs. And the way that we did that was we actually allowed other people's NFTs to be incorporated into our casual games. So we have a game called like Battle Showdown, where it's a multiplayer shooter game. And what you can do is, if you have a particular NFT and the NFT has been configured on the ETHLAS holding that particular NFT, for example, if you hold a Daisy or a Doodles, you will actually be able to unlock a generic avatar. So for example, our Daisy shoots bananas and our Como shoots like gems. And they have different stats, like different health stats, different agility stats, where they can move around the map really quickly. And so just by inviting these communities over, we create just that momentary utility for them to interact with other communities as well. And as well as giving utility for their members so that they still stay together as long as possible. So that was one way, yeah.
So you're basically solving like NFT projects roadmap problems while at the same time increasing your own community by bridging them over from the various NFT projects. And you're saying with each NFT there's a different, let's say, set of skills, or like you're saying some are more agile. Like how do you guys go about determining that, or does the project get to dictate that?
Right. So there's no probably there's no science to it. We just go with the flow and tweak it if it gets too imbalanced. So we do like constant like rebalancing. If one of the avatars gets too strong, then we rebalance it again.
Okay. And for these NFT projects you are onboarding, are they multi-chain as well, or is it mainly?
I would say some. Not actually, very little of them are actually multi-chain. Actually, we even managed to onboard projects on Solana.
So chicks, if I remember.
Yeah, so chicks as well. So that's pretty cool because we weren't able to read the Solana contracts. They were not EVM compatible. We had to do it in a very hacky kind of way where they had to input some other identifiers for them to unlock their NFTs.
Okay. I wish I was a tech guy, but I don't get the backend, but yeah. Okay, that's cool. Oh yeah, and on the point, like you were saying, mini games for basically to casual games to make it easy for people to adopt. I saw Candy Crush and Wordle as well. Yeah, how do you guys integrate with those?
So we built those on our, so obviously because we built them, okay, some games, how we plan our pipeline of games is some games we build from scratch and some games we modify from Unity. And we put an ETHLAS spin to it just because it is sometimes easier to not start from scratch. And if it's a game that we see that is roughly 80% in line with what we want to put on a platform, we would just modify it. And if it's a totally new game, then we'll build it from scratch. So things like Wordle and Candy Crush. I think Candy Crush we actually built from scratch, but Word we got a partner game studio to co-build on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say like 80% is either self-built or modded, and 20% is sometimes partner studios do approach us to use our platform as a launchpad for them. And any earnings would be it will be a rev share model.
Okay. Yeah, and other than that, like for the end user like myself, if I were to see something similar to Candy Crush and Wordle, it's more easy for me from Web 2 to be like, okay, yeah, I already understand how that game works and I'm willing to try it out and potentially earn some crypto rewards by playing it through ETHLAS. Is that the thought process as well?
Yeah, that was what we hope users can experience, especially for. So a funny story is we didn't really build for a particular age group or a particular demographic, but the fact that we are not a platform that is focused on giving insane yield or earnings, and at the same time we are focused on really easy games. So what happened was our demographic naturally became like Latin, Philippines, Vietnam, so the developing markets, and the age group tended to be actually from 30 to 40 age group, where it's not exactly the super young like the teens or the mid 20s, but more of maybe people who are already working and maybe they might not have that much time to learn about crypto, and maybe they find that this is an easy way to get into to learn a bit more about crypto.
Okay. And you also,
Actually, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah, Jeff, you go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Hey, Nick. Thanks for coming on. This is Jeff. I think we met each other very briefly at our offices. I actually have a question around what you just said, where your sort of main audience is 30 to 40. How do you do onboarding for such target audience where they may not be super exposed to crypto? On one hand, they're probably a little bit experienced with some of these games. How do you bring them onto crypto and also bring them into this financialization of games?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. We actually are constantly thinking of how to make it easier for people to come into crypto. And initially, we were just like, okay, MetaMask. We just put tutorials out there and teach them how to onboard, get a MetaMask account. But after that, we realized not everyone likes reading and looking at slides and screens and graphics. They just want the easy way out. So we ended up really pandering to them and saying, okay, fine, if you don't want to learn about how to create a MetaMask now, let's just connect with what you already have. So things like Facebook or Google accounts. So we enabled social logins to earn crypto. So these people who came in, and if they were like very reluctant to learn about new technology like crypto, I think the first step would be to get them into our ecosystem. That's already half the better one. And once they're in, let them play games, let them accrue some rewards. And how we are doing this is, how do you accrue on like crypto rewards when you don't have MetaMask? So we actually operate on a hybrid of cloud and on-chain mechanism,
Right.
where you can start earning gems tagged to a social account or social login off-chain. And when you're finally ready to take that plunge into crypto, we have the steps to guide you on like how to create MetaMask, how to cash out. Like if you like explore around and click around, you have seen, okay, there is a guy that actually swaps your virtual gems to on-chain gems, and another guy that actually swaps it to like Matic or ETH or USD, and you can cash out. So we guide them through slowly and at their own pace. So if they're not ready for MetaMask, we just stick with what they're comfortable with first.
I see. That's actually quite smart. So essentially what you're doing is you're providing a non-intrusive way of onboarding, right? Like where you are not penalizing users for not having any crypto wallet, but instead you're keeping custody of their rewards, and when they're ready to cash out, then you're basically just helping them to swap back into their wallet and cash out. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, and I think that decision also came from like the fact that I think a big chunk of the founding team was from Web2 and like consumer base as well. So that naturally came to them to think of solutions that and think from a consumer perspective, like people actually do like to stick to stuff that they're really so familiar with.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Very cool. Very Anthony,
Yeah.
you can continue.
Just picking back up from the point where you were saying regards to having partner game studios to come on and build games on your platform as well. I would like to start diving into your ecosystem. Besides, since you guys are a platform, now we have the players earning gems when they play games. We have partner studios coming in to build games and they get to earn a revenue share from that. And yeah, who else is a part of this ecosystem?
Let's see. So we have. So I think when I talk about ecosystem, I'm always reminded of like how we started off as with this very bold vision of free to play and play to earn. And we were thinking of how we could use the play to earn guys to make like really fun games. People would pay. It's just like how in Web2 games, people would just pay for like Clash of Clans. People would pay for you would pay to get faster progress in the game. But we realized that the crowd that we were attracting when we said play to earn was actually people who probably expected 10 times, 20 times returns. And the only way we could do that is if we were to launch something that was really Ponzi-nomics. And we knew like from the start that wasn't going to be sustainable. So from the start, we didn't promise super high returns. So when we think about like stakeholders in the game, we think about not really whales or not really people who are there to flip, but people who are there to probably just be part of the community and earn a little bit and just they're kind of like happy about that. So I think most of our users are actually like community members, and I don't think currently the ecosystem is probably controlled by any of the whales as they call it. So that is for the community part. For the game studios, we don't actively seek out game studios, but we are always open to like collaboration with any one of them. Like we have also like a couple of like animation studios coming to us and say, hey, can you like come up with a game for us? So we are always like open to talks with any stakeholders that might come our way.
Could you also perhaps speak to about the opportunity of Web3 gaming for gaming studios that may or may not have leaped over yet? Perhaps you could share some numbers or some ideas around the opportunity.
Sorry, Jeff, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is basically for game studios that are currently not in crypto, could you perhaps share some tips and also highlight some of the opportunities in this space for them?
Okay, I would firstly, if they were a Web2 game studio coming into Web3, probably the question I would ask them is why would they want to be on Web3? And the answer that I have now would probably be very different from the answer I had a couple of months ago during the height of GameFi summer, because we've seen games like XC really crash because the rate of earnings wasn't sustainable. So if the aim of the game studio was purely to digitize their assets and make it interoperable, then we could work out. That would be a very easy like solution to fix for the game studio. But if the game studio would be, if they want to build like some sort of token economy, then I would say that like the idea of building a token economy, and if they were to come in for the sake of play to earn, to build a play to earn economy, I would say that is not going to be very sustainable, in a sense that so in play to earn, right, I feel like the state of the GameFi economy right now is what everyone has been doing in the past has been emitting tokens, right? And
Basically like hyperinflation, Venezuela style.
so that's right. I feel like the only sustainable way forward right now would be like every fiat dollar that comes in to buy the token either goes back into the LP so that when people cash out, there's enough liquidity back, or I think that is the only way, because if it's printing tokens, then it's just going to be inflationary.
Yeah, so basically for you guys are not going to high APYs to attract them in. It's more like it's actually fun. And at the same time, you can earn a bit. It's not just
right.
a simple amount.
So we actually have like a couple of months ago, our hashtag was a play win. So now we are pivoting to endless entertainment. So we are not saying that we are totally eliminating the earning aspect, but we are toning it to a sustainable level. And to make up, we want to make it a fun experience for the user.
Yeah, and I agree on endless entertainment because you guys have so many mini games on your platform. 14.
And I think we eventually want to reach a state where we are just the platform you could go to just to kill time when you are on the train or when you're on the bus.
Yeah.
And even better if you could challenge your friend to a friendly game while you're at it. And yeah, so that's the kind of end state we want to achieve.
Yeah, that'll be very. And yeah, you're giving a distinction between those who are playing free to play players and those who are playing to earn. In your ecosystem, how do these two types of players interact with one another?
That's a very good question. We currently still have two models of free to play and play to earn. And in the past, what we were trying to achieve is if people play to earn, we were hoping to achieve a state where the game is so fun that people would just pay to progress to play. And this pot where they pay, which is the revenue pot, could potentially get split into the play to earn and the free to play to earn, right? So basically, the free players and the earning players. I think with the state of crypto right now, it's going to be a bit more difficult to achieve that state where the revenue pot gets split between the paying players and the free players. So what we are doing right now is we're saying we still want our ecosystem to be open and we still want it to be accessible. However, if you are free to play, then you will get very little earnings compared to someone who pays to play, which we think is like it makes a lot of sense, where you just get a proportion of what you put into the ecosystem. But that means that we are still like emitting tokens, right?
Yeah.
And we feel that the rate at which we emit tokens is essentially the rate at which it should be at the rate at which we acquire new users. So we look at our whole ecosystem and we look at what are the token sinks and token taps within the ecosystem and what is the net gem emissions or the net gems needed for people to survive in our ecosystem, to buy items, to play. And for each new user we acquire, ideally that rate of emission, which we emit via like maybe gaming leaderboards or rewards, should be equal to the number of new users we are gaining. We expand together with the growth in new users.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's something which you are very focused on since that's under here of finance. That's what practically what you do there, manage the tokenomics.
I guess we're a lean team, so everyone
definitely understand it here as well. But yeah,
we work as a team. Yeah.
Okay. On the point of you're saying basically for the emissions it must be proportional to the rate of new users entering, and I guess for the play to earn users, they do have the Como NFT to participate as a play to earn, or I just want to understand how does the Como NFT come into play here.
Right, people who have the Como NFT we are actually working on the launch of one of the flagship games that we have called Como Clash.
Yes.
So Como Clash is like it is similar to, think of it as a XC cross with a Hearthstone gaming mechanism, and basically players who own a Como will have a better rate of return than someone who doesn't own a Como. And we also have these things which we call elements within the ETHLAS ecosystem. So elementals, we have 10 elementals. Each of our Como actually has a elemental affinity, one in their horns and one in their tails. And they can actually pair up these elementals with their Como to boost their elemental affinities when they are challenging either each other or like bosses. So that is the main utility we have. But at the side, we've also built quite a bit of utility for Como. For example, currently if you own a Como, you can send them on mini loot quests where you can get materials in preparation for Como Clash. We've also introduced like interesting like small features. We have this thing called Como Cooking, where you can combine different materials you find within the metaverse into something that's edible, and when you consume the item, it actually gives you some sort of a boost when you perform like certain actions, right? For example, if you eat a pudding, if you cook a pudding and eat a pudding, you can actually get maybe increased earnings from board rewards and things like that. So we are trying to, as much as possible, create this kind of feedback loop and ecosystem where we emit stuff and it gets burned and we emit, so it creates a feedback cycle in a way.
Okay. And I understand like most recently you guys also launched quests for Comos to embark on, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one where the small loot quest where you can get items.
Yes. And basically that more or less acts as another sink for X gems and more utility for the Comos. And
Right.
but yeah, that's mental. Okay.
So like the way we see is you spend some X gems, you either break even, have a small net spend, but at the same time you get materials in return which will boost your progress in the game.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess let's also understand a bit of the tokens. Like with regards to, I understand there's X Gem, which you earn when you play games, the reward token, and there's EL. How do they, what's the difference and how do they interact with one another?
The dual tokens that we have. So
Yeah.
we have two tokens. One of them is already launched. That's called XGEM. And we also have a governance token called ELS, which is not launched yet. So what the reason why we have a dual token model is because XGEM actually meant to be the utility token within the ETHLAS metaverse, i.e. it would be like what we give out in rewards, it would be what people pay for items, pay with for items within the metaverse. And so that's the utility token. And in and of itself, we don't see that the utility token will inherently accrue in value just because it's used as a medium of exchange. But what we are quite bullish about is the governance token, which is ELS, and that is meant to be the equity token in the platform. So if you hold the ES token, you have governance rights, you'll be entitled to profits within the ETHLAS treasury, and basically you are a stakeholder and you have a say in the direction of the platform.
Okay, so basically, eventually you guys will go from currently your model of being much like a team running it to more of a DAO where people will be able to own XLS and have a say as to how you guys go about managing ETHLAS.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think as we mature, more of the strategic decisions would be decided by the community members. And I think like for most projects, like in the very early stages, it's mainly the team that kind of decides like what to build and what's best for a project. But I think as it matures and as the community grows and as people get more familiar with the platform, then they would be in a better position to make informed decisions. And that's when we feel like we will be able to transition to a decentralized state.
Okay. And to identify, let's say, the parts of the community who are able to own, let's say, XLS, how do you guys go about doing that, or is that just not public information for now?
Sorry, and I didn't catch that. You were breaking up.
Oh yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically I was asking like how do you identify parts of the community who are contributing and would play a huge part if they were to be a part of the decentralized governance? Like how do you identify those who you distribute your governance tokens to?
We actually haven't really decided yet. We have a couple of proposals so that it would be easy to identify people who, for example, either own Windblown. So Windblown was like the very first elemental NFT that we released. Or people who maybe own Comos, or maybe they have like stake in our staking program. So I think all of them would be potential candidates for how we choose to distribute an initial batch of tokens.
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
And we might also just launch a staking program. Maybe it could be just like single-sided staking so that people just don't incur that IL. Or we're still thinking about it. Could be a VE system as well. We'll see. Yeah.
And with regards to on and off ramp, so currently you guys are using MoonPay, and I guess it will be SGD directly to X Gems, or How does it go about working?
So I think MoonPay currently accepts mainly the native tokens. And also we were thinking about, even if people were able to buy XGEMs through MoonPay, because we are looking at MoonPay, when we implemented MoonPay, it was really with new users in mind. And when new users come into crypto, what would they need first? Gas. So then naturally we should just give them the option to buy on-chain tokens like Matic because we are on Polygon. Because if we were to let them buy some like other token, then they realize, oh wait, I don't have gas to do anything. So it would be just easier to get them to first buy the native token and then direct them to maybe swap for other like tokens that they want to get. So currently MoonPay, we enable just Matic for now.
Actually, I do have a follow-on question around that. For users, especially in this part of the world, especially emerging Asia, users may or may not have access to, for example, card payments, etc. And my understanding of MoonPay is that they primarily work with debit cards or credit cards. So for users who may not have access to such instruments, how would someone go about getting on-ramp?
That is a spot-on question, Jeff. So you're right. So even in credit card space, not all banks actually accept crypto.
Right.
So we will have to look at things like mobile payments, or I don't know that I think, do they use like GPay in Philippines or something like
Yes, GPay in Philippines, that's pretty big.
So that's the thing. That's something we would have to improve further. And
Right.
we are. If you guys have like suggestions on how how we can cater to this group of core users, yeah, I would be happy to hear that as well. But yeah, that's a spot on question.
Yeah, this is actually something that we're also actively working on. We truly understand that most likely on-ramping in Asia, including off-ramping in Asia, is going to be really radically different from how it's being done in other parts of the world. So in Asia, most of these wallets are more prevailing as compared to credit card or debit card payments. So the way that we're thinking about this is that one of the ways in which BlueJay, for example, could enable such payments is to work directly with wallet providers and all of these mobile financial services as opposed to more traditional, card financial services. So it's yet to come. We'll probably be announcing something along those lines as we progress further in our protocol. So definitely be on this.
Excited about that.
Yeah, especially thinking about gaming in Asia, it's just a humongous market, especially in emerging Asia, where everybody plays games from all age groups, really. Like you mentioned, it's not just a super young audience that plays some of these games, but it's also the 30, 40 age group, even older. Whenever I take MRT in Singapore, I always notice that everyone's on their phone, regardless of their age, playing Candy Crush, whatever game. To get to that level, I think this access to on-ramping and off-ramping becomes really crucial.
That is actually a huge barrier to entry for most people. So even just to share like some personal experience when I was in banking. So the question I got most was, oh, okay, you are into crypto, right? I know how to get my money in, but like, how do I get my money out? So that's, even if I profit, how do I cash out? And that is a real concern among a lot of people who are not in the crypto space. And I feel like on-ramp and off-ramp is really a big problem that if solved could just expedite adoption massively.
Yeah. On that note, where do you see, so let's say fast forward in the next 5 years, and let's say we have stronger and more reliable as well as more user-friendly on-ramping and off-ramping infrastructure. Where do you see the GameFi and the wider metaverse slash Web3 gaming market?
So I wouldn't, okay, maybe 5 years is a long time in crypto. Maybe 2 years.
That is forever in crypto.
Yeah. I think one thing I learned about crypto is, or web, it is actually when you strip away all that glamour of play to earn and earnings, it is really about the community and how like-minded people can get together and share ideas and just be part of the community. So this is something I realized when I went for like conferences, or when I speak to people who have been to, say, NFT NYC. And what I've heard, so I wasn't there, what I've heard was that in those conferences that there wasn't a semblance of, oh, it's doom and gloom of crypto winter. People were just happy to be around each other because they shared similar ideals or hopes or just similar vibes. And I think this similarly would apply to GameFi as well. Maybe if you were part of a gaming community, and that gaming community would probably stand for something you believe in, maybe similar interests, a similar gaming genre, and the value addedness is now it's much more community based. And I guess gaming has always been community based, but just now it is community based with the added layer of interoperability, where you can maybe mingle between communities. Whereas in the past, if you're playing one game, you probably wouldn't know people from another game. But with interoperable assets and metaverses, that could be a possibility where communities could just merge and intermingle with each other. Yeah, so that is what I think, fingers crossed, but what I see will be coming up. There's a couple of like cool developments in the space, right? Like other side is, has been testing this like mega metaverse. Yeah, so really excited to see what comes out of this space in a year's time.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of the early days of esports. I wasn't really in the whole esports scene, but I've had friends who went professional and whatnot, where you have to explain to your close friends. You have this close group of people who are really passionate about esports and how that can be the next phase of gaming. But whenever you talk to people outside of this sort of close group, then you have to explain how do you get paid by playing games. The whole play to earn as well as where Web3 gaming is heading at, it reminds me a lot about the early days of esports in that regard.
Exactly. So I feel like it's just like even esports, it boils down to like community, right? Just like people who play esports, they understand each other. But when you speak to someone outside, maybe they don't really get it. Yeah, and I feel like actually this concept of community and gaming could potentially be monetized if in the form of, I know this is like a taboo word in Web3, but I'm just going to say it, advertisements or corporate tie-ups. It's really taboo, but who knows? Maybe it can be done in a non-intrusive way where community-based targeting is probably like the best way for, if you know your target audience and you reach out to a community that really is suited for your product, then it could be something that comes out of this whole like GameFi crypto community thing.
Yeah, on that note, since we're also running out of time, I guess last question from my side is, what are the games that you frequently play? Both, yeah, I guess on-chain, off-chain, Web2, Web3, doesn't really matter. And what are some of the games that you're really excited about?
For crypto games?
Yeah, either crypto or non-crypto.
Let me think. I'm actually very excited about the other side because I see so much potential in there. Although it's not really a game, it's a metaverse. I think that there are a lot of great games out there right now that are in building phase, and those games are like blockbuster games, really cool, like 3D first person shooter. And I guess it remains to be seen like whether the end product would be something that lives up to the community's expectation, because building up for 6 months to a year, the expectation is huge, and I really hope that there will be a lot of fun games coming out of it. Like personally, I've bought into a couple of GameFi projects which have not really developed their product yet. I think Chumbi Valley was one of them. On Polygon, it's really cute Pokemon fluffy things walking around, and I bought a couple of the NFTs, but they are still in building mode, and I know what it feels to be a builder, so it takes time. But yeah, sometimes people get impatient. But it really takes time, so I really hope good stuff gets delivered.
Yeah, it's not that easy to build a game after all.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes years in the traditional gaming space to build a solid game. And in GameFi, because crypto moves at 5 times the speed of real time, people get it done in 6 months.
I'm sure we'll get to see some blockbuster games coming out later this year, if not early next year.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Yeah. Actually, I know I said last question, but actually I have one follow-on question, which is about the console, right? The console has done amazing stuff for the gaming industry. Why isn't crypto on consoles yet?
Why isn't crypto on consoles yet? That is a good question. I guess console games are not as accessible as non-console games. By console, you mean the gaming, like gaming console?
Yeah, right. Xbox, etc.
Right. So I guess that might come in. Maybe I would see console games maybe being in terms of R, VR kind of consoles, but more of immersion. Because I think what the crypto industry is really solving for right now is probably adoption first. And only when there's widespread adoption, then probably they can look at more niche markets like console or like device-based games. But say if you are a Web2 user and jumping to crypto plus console, there's 2 big hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, it's actually coming more from the perspective of thinking about all the users that have consoles in their living rooms. And I have a lot of friends who are glued to their TV playing console games. I was just thinking, perhaps there's actually a pretty big opportunity if you can convert some of the existing console users into crypto. So that could actually be one of the ways to onboard more adoption in the space.
That's a very interesting thought. Yeah, console games, because I think what console games solve for is actually retention.
Yes.
Yes, that console is like real estate in your home,
Yes.
waiting to be played. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Why
hopefully
hasn't
we see
it
that soon.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully Sony and Microsoft will buy into this vision as well.
Yeah, I do think that's a great idea, actually. Cool.
All right, let me pass back over to Anthony.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can just round it up. But yeah, basically, I really love what you guys are doing at ETHLAS, making it easy for people to enter crypto, be it through casual gaming, which honestly, I haven't really seen it failed in the crypto gaming space, as everyone's just trying to go for something massive. Yeah, with their funding rounds. And other than that, yeah, with the easy on and off on ramp with MoonPay and also interop bridging through different chains. Yeah, I really do see potentially a huge GameFi adoption coming through ETHLAS. And hopefully I'll give your game a try after this also.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, for everyone else, rest well and good night. Yeah, thanks Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.